Forget the illusion that the world is easily reachable. We are used to thinking that any point on the map is just a matter of airfare and travel time. Bouvet Island does not care about your plans or your credit card. It is a geographic dead end where reality ties itself into a knot. You are standing on a slab of basalt covered in ice, about 1,000 miles from the frozen wall of Antarctica, and the nearest person sitting in a warm apartment is roughly 1,400 miles away. That is farther than the distance from New York City to Dallas, except instead of highways and cities around you, there is only the roaring South Atlantic, which does not forgive mistakes, not even from heavy ice-breaking ships. Nobody passes through this place by accident. You cannot drop in for a weekend. Bouvet is the kind of place where the planet itself seems to have posted a guard and hung up an invisible sign that says, "No entry." And it has been doing that for millions of years. The creepiest fact about this place surfaced in 1964, and it still makes skeptics nervously clean their glasses. An expedition led by Lieutenant Alan Crawford, arriving by helicopter from HMS Protector, found a lifeboat in a small lagoon on Bouvet's shore. Around it, there was not a single human trace. No fire pit, no bodies, no abandoned clothing, not even flattened grass, which, for the record, does not exist there either. On an island where 93% of the land is covered by glacier, and where landing from the water is considered pure suicide because of 1,300-foot cliffs and insane surf, somebody had apparently just pulled up, unloaded, and vanished. A large search operation found nothing. The British checked every square yard of accessible ground, which, considering the terrain, took days of brutal work. When the next group reached the island 2 years later, the boat had vanished just as completely as its hypothetical crew. Let us deal with the geography of this frozen hell right away, so the scale of the isolation becomes something you can actually feel. Bouvet Island is the summit of a giant shield volcano sticking out of the ocean on the far edge of the mid-Atlantic ridge. Its total area is only 19 square miles, but these may be the most inhospitable square miles on Earth. For comparison, that is smaller than Manhattan, except instead of parks and coffee shops, you get ice peaks and basalt spires. In some places, the ice is up to 656 feet thick. And if you are thinking maybe at least you could walk along the shore, I have bad news. The coastline is either sheer ice walls or black basalt cliffs constantly battered by landslides and falling rock. The surf is so violent here that waves hit the cliffs at heights of 100 to 130 feet, creating a curtain of spray that freezes almost instantly in the wind. The irony is that this frozen chunk of rock belongs to Norway, a country on the other side of the planet. How did that happen? In 1927, Norwegian whalers landed here, planted a flag, and claimed the territory. The British were annoyed at first because they considered Bouvet their discovery dating back to the 19th century. But then they looked at the climate and the logistics reports, did the math on what it would cost to maintain, waved a hand, and essentially said, "Fine, take it. Just do not ask us for help when something goes wrong." Since then, Bouvet has officially been considered the most isolated piece of land on Earth. The discovery story of the island is its own absurd little thriller. Jean-Baptiste Charles Bouvet de Lozier stumbled across it in 1739, but because of monstrous fog and terrible navigation, he did not even realize it was an island. He decided it was the edge of some unknown southern continent and named it Cape Circumcision, and yes, the name really was that strange. For the next 100 years, captains tried to find this cape again, but the island seemed to be playing hide and seek. James Cook sailed past the area in 1772 and concluded that Bouvet had made it all up, that no such island existed. Cook was meticulous, but even his precision was useless here. Fog, wind, and awful visibility turned navigation into guesswork. Only in 1808 did the British whaler James Lindsay find the rock again and prove that Bouvet had not been crazy after all. In the 20th century, Bouvet went from a navigational mistake to an object of intelligence interest. On September 22, 1979, the American Vela satellite, designed to monitor nuclear testing, detected a double flash near the island, the classic marker of an atmospheric nuclear explosion in the range of 2 to 3 kilotons. The whole world panicked. The United Nations and the CIA launched urgent investigations. The problem was that no activity was recorded on the island itself, and no radioactive fallout was found in nearby regions. Or, more accurately, they looked in the wrong places and in the wrong ways. Samples were taken in Australia, New Zealand, and on the South African coast. But if the blast was small and atmospheric, its traces may simply have scattered into the ocean winds within hours. The official White House report later claimed it had probably been a micrometeorite hitting the satellite sensor. Still, we both understand that the odds of a meteorite perfectly imitating a double flash in the most remote place on the planet are close to zero. The most plausible theory is a secret joint test by Israel and South Africa. They would have chosen Bouvet precisely because of its monstrous isolation. The only witnesses would have been penguins, and the fog would help hide the flash from human eyes. In the 1980s, South Africa had a nuclear program that officially did not exist, while Israel has never confirmed or denied possessing nuclear weapons. Bouvet was the perfect test range. Legally, almost no one cared. Practically, it was the end of the world. Still, none of this has ever been confirmed, and it remains at the level of rumor and informed suspicion. As for modern data, Bouvet is not some frozen monument to cold. It is a living, pulsing geological monster. The island shakes constantly. In 2006, a powerful earthquake struck here and literally changed the landscape. A massive chunk of rock collapsed into the sea, creating a new lowland area that scientists named Nairoisa. That is where an automatic weather station now stands, the only visible sign of human civilization for thousands of miles in any direction. The station has to be replaced every few years because extreme winds and yards of snow simply destroy the electronics. And even saying replaced is a polite version of what that really means. In practice, it means sending an insanely expensive expedition, landing during a narrow weather window, digging the remains of the previous station out of the snow, installing a new one, and praying the helicopter gets you out before the next storm rolls in. A lot of UFO enthusiasts love Bouvet because of the white blanks on Google Maps. Why is the island shown in such poor resolution? Is Norway hiding an alien contact base there? Skepticism is more appropriate here than almost anywhere. The poor resolution is not a conspiracy. It is just a meteorological fact. The island is almost always covered by a thick cloud cap. For a satellite to photograph Bouvet without clouds is like winning the lottery 3 times in a row. But magnetic anomalies here are real. Because of the volcanic basalt, compass needles in some parts of the island begin behaving as if they have been dropped into a blender. Magnetite deposits in the rock create local magnetic fields that confuse not only mechanical compasses, but also digital GPS receivers. That, by the way, is one reason why navigation near Bouvet is still considered a nightmare for ship captains. And if you thought the 1964 lifeboat story was just a spooky legend made up to attract tourists who do not exist, here comes the harder, more realistic version. When Lieutenant Crawford found that boat, he did not just shrug and move on. He noted that the vessel was in excellent condition. Inside were oars, but not a single life jacket. That matters. If people had escaped from a sinking ship, they probably would not have landed on shore and then neatly stacked their life jackets before disappearing. More than that, the copper water tank was full, not empty, not smashed, full. Somebody had been planning to spend some time on the island. For years, that mystery fed paranormal speculation, until archival records surfaced about the Soviet whaling fleet, Slava. In November 1958, 6 years before Crawford's discovery, a Soviet vessel was operating in those waters. A group of sailors landed on Bouvet to install an automatic weather station. And that is where the real action started. The weather on the island changes faster than a teenager's mood. A storm hit, and the helicopter could not pick them up right away. The group spent several days on the island, and judging by the circumstances, they were probably the longest days of their lives. Temperatures dropped to about 5 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind tore apart tents, and their only shelter was cracks in the rocks. The boat was most likely used as auxiliary support, and when evacuation finally became possible, they simply left it behind. Even if that explanation is correct, why had the boat disappeared by 1966? That is where Bouvet's geology enters the story, and it behaves like an aggressive landlord. The island is alive. Glaciers move several yards per year, and landslides grind up everything in their path. The boat was either crushed by a descending slab of ice or washed back into the ocean during some later storm. In the winter of 1965, especially violent storms were recorded on the island, with waves reaching up to 66 feet. Waves like that flip yachts the way children flip bath toys, so a wooden boat would not have stood a chance. And if the answer to the lifeboat mystery turns out to be ordinary, the 1979 flash incident belongs to an entirely different league of political intrigue. Let us be honest. A double flash recorded by a dedicated monitoring satellite is not just a sensor glitch. The satellite was specifically designed to detect nuclear tests, and its sensors responded to the exact light pattern associated with a nuclear explosion. The double flash is part of the physics of detonation. First the fireball, then the reflected shock wave. Lightning does not imitate that. A meteorite does not imitate that. No known natural phenomenon does. In the 1970s, South Africa and Israel were both living in a kind of nuclear loneliness. They needed to test their technology, but they needed to do it without triggering sanctions or global outrage. Bouvet fit perfectly. In 1980, a commission under President Carter officially declared that the flash might have been caused by a micrometeorite hitting the satellite camera. The explanation sounded so weak that even people inside the White House reportedly laughed at it. Modern researchers tend to think it was a low-yield nuclear test carried out from a ship deck or a submarine. Radioactive fallout. They looked for it in Australia and New Zealand, found tiny traces of iodine-131 in sheep thyroids, and then quietly let the issue die. Who wanted to start a diplomatic war over a flash in the farthest corner of the world? Especially when the evidence was weak, because the iodine traces could also have come from legal French tests at Mururoa Atoll. And speaking of black operations, Bouvet is the perfect place for anyone who wants things to disappear into the water, literally. In 2012, a group of adventurous radio operators landed on the island for a communications event. They found strange debris there that did not look like parts of a weather station. These were fragments of high-tech equipment with markings that led nowhere. The serial numbers did not trace back to anything. The manufacturer was unknown. Naturally, rumors immediately spread about secret laboratories beneath the glacier. But if we keep our heads on straight, there is a simpler thought. Bouvet is a strategically valuable point for submarine monitoring. Whoever keeps a listening station here can monitor traffic between the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. Now for the biology, because on Bouvet, life feels less like a gift and more like a sentence. The main residents are macaroni penguins. There are hundreds of thousands of them. And if you are imagining cute cartoon birds, then you have never smelled one of their colonies. The scent is a blend of rotting fish, waste, and dead ammonia. That is the smell of Bouvet, and it soaks into your clothes in 10 minutes. It is so invasive that expedition members have reportedly burned jackets and thermal gear afterward, because no washing could save them. The penguins are the only creatures that feel truly at home here, because they do not care about winds hitting 93 miles per hour. Their bodies are evolutionary tanks, built to survive in conditions where a human would die in a matter of hours. Besides the penguins, the island is also used by elephant seals and fur seals as a staging ground. They haul out, breed, scream at each other, fight over territory, and head back into the ocean. Smart animals. So, why should we care about this frozen pimple on the skin of the ocean at all? Bouvet is one of the best examples of the fact that humanity has not tamed everything. We may dream about colonizing Mars, but we still cannot build even a simple shed on this island that will stand for more than 5 years. Every attempt to establish a permanent base here has failed. The Norwegians tried in 1996, and the station fell apart within 2 years. The British tried to install a lighthouse in the 1950s, and a wave took it away. Bouvet reminds us that Earth is not our house pet. It is a huge, complex, and in places deeply hostile machine that operates by its own rules and never asks our permission. So, if you ever start feeling like the world has become too small and there are no mysteries left, just remember Bouvet. Out there, among the fog and the roar of storms, stands an island that could not care less about your GPS tracks or your social media likes. It simply exists, and it keeps silence better than any intelligence archive ever could. Bouvet is the point where civilization ends and the real, unedited planet begins. There is only ice, stone, wind, and ocean. And maybe we should leave it alone, because the people who tried to make it theirs usually ended up leaving behind only empty boats and unanswered questions. And the island keeps standing, indifferent to our ambitions, just as it stood 1,000,000 years ago, and just as it will stand 1,000,000 years after we forget where to find it.